Hello, welcome to today's video. We are now on page 121, and this is called Harmonizing in Minor Keys with the Tonic, Dominant, and Leading Tones. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look a bit in the whiteboard. All right, here we are now with the A minor scale. And so with the A minor scale, we see that we have a few of the scale degrees written out in Roman numeral fashion. Usually for the tonic in major, this would be a capital I, but because it is minor, it is going to be lowercase. The dominant will still remain as major, which is why it's uppercase, and seventh scale degree is still diminished. And so that's why you see this little superscript here. Okay, so when we harmonize the melodies on page 121, we are going to be using the tonic leading tone, which is 7th scale degree, and dominant 5th scale degree to harmonize in the bass clef. And it says here also to complete each bass line according to the suggestions. So when we come back to our music, let's go ahead and first of all take a look at the suggestions that are given to us. Because we are going to be playing these notes here, tonic, leading tone, and the dominant would be E, it's best idea to have our left hand in D position. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead now and take a look at what we have here. Beat 1, beat 3, is setting leading tone tonic for the first one, and way over here on the third measure it says dominant, which is going to be E right there on beats 3 and 4 and nothing else. So we have an incomplete idea to complete an incomplete bass line, and there's nothing that says what we should be doing. So this is actually a very good idea, a very good opportunity for us to use the melody as a way to determine what the harmony will be. So melody in composition is usually implies the harmony. Sometimes you have notes that pass in between harmonies or chords, but a lot of the time melody will spell out what the chords are going to be in the left hand or in general. Let's take a look at just the right hand, this Lettish melody on number 1 here, 121. Let's go ahead and just play through it and see what we have. Okay, so the first suggestions were A minor is the first beat and beat number 2 also. And that can be implied from the notes E and C, which happen to be the third and the fifth of an A minor chord. So we're looking just for triad tones. Anything that is within the triad of a particular chord. In this case, it would be A minor, G sharp diminished, which is the 7th scale degree, and then of course E major, which is the dominant. Any note that falls within that triad will probably be suggesting or implying that chord as a bass line. Okay, so let's go ahead now take a look at beats 2 and 3 and 4 of the first measure. The notes are D and E. Now the given note in the bass line is G sharp. We know that D is the 5th of G sharp diminished. B is not there. But because of that D and that G sharp, it's heavily implied that this is going to be a G sharp diminished. E just happens to be an anticipation back to A minor. On measure number 2, the first 2 beats are the exact same as the first 2 beats of measure number 1, so it's pretty safe to say that that's going to be A minor again. But look at now the next two beats of 3 and 4 of measure number 2 are actually the 3rd and the 5th of G sharp diminished. So it's going to be a very good probability that that's going to be a G sharp diminished chord or a bass note in the left hand. So we can go ahead and put that here in our bass clef. Let's take a look now at measure number 3. The next two notes are C and A, which is the 3rd and tonic of A minor. So I'm sure that's going to be once again A minor again in the bass clef. And now we have this note here, G sharp and B, which is in this case, because it's saying that we have to play a dominant, we will be playing a D, or excuse me, E in the left hand while we have G sharp and B. And try not to get that confused with G sharp diminished, because that is not the chord we want. Could be used as a substitution, but not in this case. And then back to the last two measures, or last measure, we have A, and we can just play that twice, both hands, or we can just play it twice for the right hand and just keep a whole note for the left, since it's exactly the same. And we want to give more opportunity for the right hand to be more melodic. Okay, so now that we've determined based on what the notes in the melody have implied, the harmony, we can go ahead and write those notes in as half notes in the bass clef. I say we just make a whole note in the left for the last measure. When we're done, then we'll go ahead and play it. And I would encourage you to play left hand non-legato. Okay, that one's not too bad. Number 2, Carol. This one's a little bit more complicated because, well, we have some harmonies that are a little tricky. Or excuse me, we have some melody that is tricky, and it's a 3/8 time signature as well. So let's go ahead and first of all play the melody only. We appear to be in a G major key signature. G major, we come down 1.5 steps. We see that it is E minor, just as we saw for page 120 in the previous one with the transposed key. So let's go ahead and play through this melody here. We have 2 phrases. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Wow. We three kings of Orient are. Doesn't that kind of sound like that? Maybe. Okay, so now that it may be a familiar melody to you, it will definitely be easier to harmonize in the bass clef. So let's go ahead and take a look at what is going on in the bass clef. Now we have tonic, tonic, and then we have dominant, leading tone, tonic again. And I think this is not going to be that difficult because, as you can see, the first 4 measures, the first phrase is an exact repetition of the second, or the second one is an exact repetition of the first phrase. So all you have to do is copy and paste, and boom, you're done. So let's go ahead and copy and paste the first 4 measures of the bass clef for the left, and we're going to play. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Maybe play it softer for some contrast. What I would recommend is don't write it in, since it's exactly the same, and see if you can memorize it, which would give you an opportunity to harmonize on the spot without looking at music in the left hand. And for the number 3 piece here at the bottom, harmonizing in minor keys with tonic and dominant 6/5 chords. Interesting. So we know that the 1-6-5-1 chord progression that we learned back in the day is very applicable here, because we saw from our keys, our little well, I can't really go to that one because it's going to be erased. But we realize that when we have our scale degrees for minor, the tonic, yes, will be different. This we have D minor, but the dominant is still going to be a major chord. And we know that the dominant of D major is A7. And this is the first inversion, abbreviated. And all we have to do is play it like that. But notice that we do not have chord symbols written for all of this song here, all of this music, only for the first two. So once again, we are going to have to determine what the chords are going to be based on the melody. Let's go ahead and play through what we have so far. 1, 2. And then we have nothing. And because it's a repetition, I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste. And now we have some melody here without any harmony. Let's determine what this is based on the melody. Okay, so because we're only working with two chords, either the tonic or the dominant, it's going to be based on those two. Let's determine what the notes are for our dominant chord. C sharp, G, A, but because it may be possible that all four notes of this chord, which would usually be spelled like this, can be in this melody, we're going to look at it like this and see if any four of these notes are in a melody. As for D minor, D, F, and A, we're going to look to see what's part of there. Okay, so once again, looking for these notes or looking for these notes. Let's take a look at the first measure, or excuse me, measure number, whatever this measure number is. We have 3, 6, 7. Okay. The first note, E, happens to be part of the dominant chord, A7. So it may be a good idea for that first measure to be A7, but look at this. Then we have an F. So does that mean we're going to be playing on the 8th note? But take a look at again at the next measure. G goes back to the A7, but then it goes back to F again twice, but then it goes back to E, excuse me, A, and then we have tonic again. Now, it is possible for us to make the harmony or the harmonic rhythm that fast. Let's listen to what that's going to sound like. So that's kind of busy for the left hand. It wasn't as busy in the first system, so let's think about it before we play. And as you can see, for the last three measures is an exact repetition of the first three of this second system. So we're just going to copy and paste. Now, is it characteristic of the first system to have the harmony play that quickly, to move and change that quickly? Or can we consider some of these notes as passing tones? Let's try it that way. Let's just assume for a minute that F is a passing tone for the first two measures. And then this D here is going to be where we bring it down for D minor. And that will be characteristic for the measure number 3, where it moves from A7/C sharp to D in 2 measures. So let's see if we can keep it A7 for the first 2 measures and the first part of the third, and then just bring it down to D minor. Let's see what that sounds like. Here we go. Sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's listen to the other way again, and let's decide which is going to be best. I guess it kind of depends on the mood of the piece or of whatever this music is going to be for. But because for the first two measures of each phrase, since it doesn't move as often, and making it more busy here on the second system was probably not as characteristic for this piece, I think we're going to keep the second option and just play A7/C sharp for the first two measures of each phrase. Let's go ahead and now listen to everything. If you'd like, you can write these chords in, or you can just simply write the chord symbols above and harmonize it on the spot. Here we go. Let's go ahead and start from the beginning. 1, 2. I just realized what we could do also, because there is a measure of rest on measure 2 and on measure number 5 there, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, we can probably make this measure here and this measure here also a rest. So there are various options that we have, and I would like for you to come up with the best one. Thank you very much, and let's go ahead and practice every day.